enabler in that capacity, as opposed to coming out with our mythical letterhead stamped no to begin with, right?
So it actually seems with a lot of the compliance requirements that are really falling on the shoulders of the IT function, the IT security role even, that's an opportunity to actually bring together that type of information and be able to sort of say, here's where we have risk and here's where we can reduce costs and addressing that risk in the most effective way.
I'd say it's an opportunity to seize the moment around compliance. So here's an opportunity for IT professionals and security professionals that are being tasked with these compliance initiatives to then seek out these other departments and really understand the business that is occurring. A lot of times IT tends to work in these very siloed structures. They provide support and so on for various assets such as servers and workstations. But if they really understand the business and really communicate with those departments and help them achieve that compliance, they're showing that value, they're demonstrating that value beyond just managing those assets. And so compliance and regulation and so on actually is providing them with an opportunity to achieve that and get invited to take a seat at the table, as you say.
You make a very, very good point, and I think and it's about getting out there and talking to people, not just within IT, but talk to people in the business. Find out how your company makes money. Where does that revenue come from? What business processes are supporting that revenue stream? What systems are enabling that revenue stream to take place? And once you get down to that point, now you as the security practitioner have actually made that linkage from where the company makes money down to the individual assets. And you start to have some very interesting conversations between IT and the business at that point. And you can be that kind of linchpin between the two. I think that the next step, obviously, from that is to start, again, getting that telemetry and providing value up to both sides of the equation with regards to the data that is useful. Again, capacity planning. And you mentioned, assessing risk. Absolutely critical, not only from a security and a compliance perspective, but from things like business continuity. If this process or if this system fails, what happens to that revenue stream? That's something that the business leadership, I think, is going to take notice of as well.
They're definitely going to want that information. So if you can be the person providing that information, you're going to add value to your job responsibility, your job role. And I think that's absolutely crucial. So the more reports, the more valid reports that you can provide an organization, especially around compliance and on risk, if you can become the provider of that information to these departments, you're going to earn yourself a seat at that table. It's that simple.
And coming back as an enabler to the business, if you're able to quantify with some reasonable assurance the risks that the organization are taking, either through how their systems are configured and managed, or how the business is actually approaching a particular market or a revenue stream, for example, then you can actually shape how your business attaches to markets and how they actually engage in the day-to-day business operations, not just the IT side. By, for example, saying if you were to do XYZ action or deploy such and such system, here is the regulatory impact that's going to be on that particular system, right? So if you want to start taking credit cards, right, you're going to have a PCI exposure. And if we've got a good, sound security program and we've done the appropriate, risk assessments and things of that nature, we know where that data is going to lie. We can quarantine that or cordon that off in a way that allows our business to go forward with that initiative with less fear of tripping up, shall we say.
So if we're able to do this, then if I hear what you're both saying, the IT function actually moves into being part of the core business process. And in doing that, could we not actually create a competitive advantage just through our IT and security process? Would that be a fair thing to say?
Absolutely. I think if we, if a company approaches it from that standpoint, and it's not necessarily easy, it does take time to achieve that way of thinking and that changing a company's mindset. But if they're able to do that, definitely they would see success. They would become more valuable to the organization. What I'd like to see happen is those departments then reaching out to IT and saying, hey, we're getting ready to deploy a new business or a new process. How are we going to be impacted from a security perspective? Help us work through this, understand the risks involved, and so on. If you can reach that point where they're coming to you as an integral part of that business process, then I think that you've achieved that goal that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. The ongoing integration of the operational side of the business with IT and security functions. As you said, if they're bringing you to the table, that means you've already said something of value. And if you can, again, keep the organization on their straight and narrow, shall we say, and let them do business in a safe and secure way that's going to not undermine shareholder or customer confidence in the organization, then they can be free to attack new markets. The flip side of this also, though, is as you get better at performing these functions as a security or an audit practitioner, and you can streamline and reduce those costs in the audit tax like we spoke in our previous session, that's money that's going straight back to the bottom line. So that's money that can go into your organization's R&D, into extending into new markets, into other things.
Up capital.
Right. Now, I'm not saying that security all of a sudden magically overnight went from cost center to profit center. But by being an enabler of the business and by shaving costs out of the audit cycle that we all have to pay, millions of dollars every year, most of it in professional service fees, if we can trim that a little bit and fold that back in, then we've effectively reduced our impact on the business from a dollars and cents perspective negatively, right? And I think that that's an important takeaway as well.
Yeah, especially if you can demonstrate that the audit time, cycle has decreased somewhat. Maybe you've gone from X number of days down to less days or something like that. That's demonstrable to a degree, and so you can demonstrate that value to the company and show that you're reducing costs. So I know that everybody talks about reducing costs and ROI and all these things, but it really is an area that is quite demonstrable if you can achieve the goals around reducing time spent on audits.
The real trick, though, is that getting that critical visibility. And if you've got the data to actually make those decisions and to actually show to management that you have reduced that time. One of the things I love asking people is, how much did your audit cost you last year? You'd be surprised at how many people have no idea.
Oh, they don't know.
And you got to go thumbing through the contracts department, find the master service agreement that they signed with the Big Four, and say, "Oh, wow." And then you can start having a conversation about, okay, well, let's see if there's a way to shave that down, either, again, as you said, total number of man days spent, or if there's a way to accelerate the cycle, again, perhaps through automation, to close some of those gaps and tighten up some of those processes to drive that cost out.
And you're not going to have as clear a picture if you have different audits occurring in different parts of the company, because then getting a clear picture of how much you've spent is even tougher situation. So you really, if you're taking it from a top-down approach and you've got a little more control around your audits, then you're going to know have a better idea of what your expenses are. But if you're doing multiple audits in different departments, I guarantee you'll have no idea what your costs are. It's just scattered all over the company.
Well, gentlemen, you definitely have given us a very different perspective. I think from moving from this, I have an audit burden and an audit tax and an audit pain. If I invest in my ability to do those processes better and more streamlined, not only do I free up capital to invest in other parts of the business, but I actually move my entire IT process to really sustaining and driving business value. And that's something that I think is very different, something I think we would all try to strive for. So I want to thank you for spending time with us today, and I want to thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@lumension.com. And until next time, this is Edward Brice. Thank you very much.